Hello,
Hi,
I'm Jeffrey Smith,
I'm Christine Smith,
and
and
the two of us run a boat that we're on right now that's called the David B. We take people on trips up in Alaska, and we actually do some stuff that's really cool that a lot of people haven't ever heard about people doing in Alaska. Most of the people who've seen Alaska have seen it on a big cruise ship or think about going there on a big cruise ship, and we do something that's really different. We run this small boat, and we're actually able to go do what we want to do and what the passengers would like to do and see really cool stuff. Christine and I were thinking about the things that we do, and one of the stories that we really like is this day that we were able to go watch some bears and or watch a bear. Christina was out on a little hike. Tell us about the hike.
okay. So, while we're in Alaska, some of the things that we like to do is go for hikes, and we were in one of my favorite places in the whole world, which is called Ford's Terror. I love that place because not only is it a small side fjord that has incredible granite cliffs carved by glaciers, but it also has a reversing tidal rapid. It has waterfalls everywhere, old growth forest. It's just a really, really beautiful place. But it also has bears. So we're ashore, and I was taking some people on a hike that is one of my favorite hikes because we get to go up to a lookout where you can look down at the water that's about 150 feet down. You can see the boat anchored, and you can look out in the fjord.
Typically, when we do one of these hikes, Christine does a lot of the trips ashore. She takes people, or I take the whole group ashore in our skiff, and then she takes them for the hike. And I tend to go back to the boat and hang out with the skiff and get ready for the next meal. And we have a couple people watching us. Cynthia and Deborah and Nancy have just joined us. And we have a question here. What's a reversing tidal rapid? So tell us about reversing tidal rapids,
Well,
Christine.
a reversing tidal rapid is where during the tide, the water will flow in one direction. It looks a lot like a river, and then it'll come to a stop, and then the water will turn and flow out the other direction. And so that's one of the features of Ford's Terror.
It's got this really large fjord back in there behind this narrow rapids. And so you can go for this hike right on the spot where the rapids are visible, but you can also go through that spot when the water is calm, and you can also go back in there and see the majestic beauty that's back in the back. But we were actually doing a hike out on the front there, right next to the
Mhm.
rapids, when Christine had an interesting experience with her bear.
So I took the group ashore and we were walking up the trail a little bit. And as soon as we got up there, we started finding lots of bear scat. So it was also blueberry season. So we definitely knew that there was probably going to be a bear there somewhere. So I very carefully took everybody up the trail, and I just kept watching for every moment of the hike. I just kept watching and listening and looking around and seeing what was around us while explaining what the different plants were and showing off some of the really, really cool uh, uh, ponds. I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head.
Kettle
Kettle
ponds.
ponds, thank you. Looking at the kettle ponds, and then I finally looked up and I saw some little rustling in the bushes. And what I did is I stopped, and we all stopped very quietly and watched the tree rustling a little bit. And then finally we saw little black heads, some little ears sticking out, and we found a little black bear. And this bear was very intent on eating blueberries and really didn't seem to even notice us at all. So we kept watching it, and the only problem was that we were about 7/8 of the way done with our hike, and the best part is when you get to look down at the boat. But unfortunately, between us and the boat, us and the view, was the bear. So we stayed there for a good long time, and we watched it, and we took some pictures, and then I radioed down to Jeffrey, who would have had a view of the spot that the bear could have been, and I asked him, said, "Hey, we've got a bear up here between us and the outlook. Can you see it there?" And
It was interesting from where I was. Well, first of all, we do a lot of hikes in bear country, and so there's always worries about the safety. And when Christine radioed to say that there was a bear that was visible up there, she was very careful to say very quickly in the conversation that the bear was not actually anywhere near them and that they were all safe. But she did want to know where the bear was, or if I could see the bear, and if I could tell if the area up by the viewpoint looked clear or not. And from where I was, I couldn't see the bear. So when we talked on the radio, I confirmed that I had no idea where the bear was, and so it was all up to her. And so
So we stood there for a long time watching the bear, and then I kind of made the decision and talked it over with the group and said, you know, one of the things I really don't want to do is I don't want to disturb it because it's got a short period of time from when it can, you know, get all of its food for the summer and then before it goes into hibernation. So I didn't want to disturb it. I didn't want it to lose any calories running away from us or anything. So we decided that maybe it would be a good idea to just turn around. We had a beautiful view where we were. It wasn't the view that I wanted to take everybody to, but not everybody gets a bear on that hike either. So we turned around and we walked down the trail and walked to the spot where I have Jeffrey come with a skiff and pick me up. And I radioed over there and I said, "Hey, we're back at the beach. Stop by or come by and get us." And just as he said, "Sure, I'll be there in a moment," one of our guests who'd been looking for the bear was able to find it. And he's like, "Hey, there's the bear." And I was like, "Awesome." So I radioed back to Jeffrey and I said, "Okay, so when you come over, be really quiet," because we didn't want to scare the bear off. And
it was interesting also at that point. I wasn't real sure where the bear had gone, and they were very visible. The group was very visible on the beach, but it wasn't obvious if the bear was nearby, if it was a hurry to get over there. But Christine didn't seem to be particularly worried, except that she wanted me to be really quiet. So I came over and got everybody, and we got in the skiff, and it was this group that we had was really amazing. They had all done a lot of hunting in their lives. We get all different kinds of people. We get people who have, you know, big interests in the outdoors, in just observing wildlife. We've had trips like this where there are hunters or fishermen, and this group had done a lot of hunting, and they were really good at spotting wildlife, although they didn't have any guns with them since we don't do anything like that. And they were really good at spotting, and they were able to find this bear up on the hillside again, and it was actually in a spot on a cliff about 15 or 20 feet high where it was sitting right near the edge of the water. So we actually stopped the skiff on the way back out and drifted around, and it kind of went around this little cove. The whole edge of the cove is this high cliff, and so we were about 50 feet below the bear, but only about 10 or 15 feet horizontally from where the bear was above us. And we just sat there drifting around, watching it probably for half an hour or more. And it was just eating berries and enjoying itself. And like Christine said, we were really trying to make sure we didn't disturb it because of its short season to get fat over the summer.
yeah, so that was a really fun experience that we had, and we were just felt really lucky that we can take people out and have these experiences with them, and then to come back and share them with other people.
Also, we got a couple other people. Carol and Gerald have also just joined us here to watch. We love having people to talk to about this. One of our big things going on right now, we have a big special going on a couple of our trips. We're really interested in this trip where we're going to stop at a bear viewing observatory spot that the National Forest Service runs. And the beauty of this is that we don't typically go there, but this coming year we have a special way to do it. We have a bear guide who's going to be flying in on a float plane to meet us, and then we'll be going ashore in our skiff with the bear guide. He actually goes there almost once a day all summer. Their service runs there every single day, and he's around running it a lot of the time. And so he's really familiar with the bears that are there. There's a group of bears that are the descendants of some bears that were actually hand raised from cubs. Their mother was killed, and the cubs were hand raised by a guy who was living in a cabin on that spot. And then the cubs, the females out of that group, grew up, and they brought their cubs there. And so there are a lot of bears that are very used to being in that spot, and they're not worried about people being around. And so we're able to go ashore there with this bear guide, and we'll be able to sit on the beach and get some really good close pictures of the bears that are there. In contrast to this story, the bears that are at that spot are brown bears. That'll be on Admiralty Island, and that's on our Pack Creek trip. And that one is, we're doing a 15% special on that. And then we also, the trip that Christine was talking about was one of our trips that goes to Tracy Arm and Ford's Terror that was on a different kind of trip. And with that trip, we're also doing a special on one of those that's during June.
Looks like we have another question from Deborah. She says, are you finding that you are spotting more bears on your trip with the new expanded saloon area? And I think Jeffrey would definitely say that's true, because we've got way more indoor space that people can spend time looking for bears, and
indoor space with big windows.
Yeah.
And then a couple other things with our change with this last year, changing around how the boat was configured. The pilot house has more space for people to be in up there with me, and that's helped me spot a bunch more wildlife, or they've seen it, and we've been able to confirm it right there. And then the upper deck has been amazing this past year. We were able so many times, especially on that trip with all the guys who were really excited about doing their hunting. They spent about 3/4 of the daytime of every day on the upper deck, dressed in whatever gear they needed to be in to be comfortable up there with their binoculars, and they were able to spot a lot of stuff from up there as well, and that actually turned out to be really cool. So the changes we made this last year have been really helpful for being able to spot bears.
Yeah. Yeah, and we do have one of the things we have for up on the upper roof is a spotting scope that's on a tripod. That's another great way. If we're at anchor, we can look for bears that are on the beach while we're sitting on the boat, and that's a really great way to watch bears. Just look through the spotting scope or the binoculars, and you're watching them, you're not disturbing them, and a lot of times they come down to the meadows or down at low tide they'll eat barnacles and that kind of thing.
So we have a couple different discounts going on for trips. All the trips in May and June have a discount on them. And there's a specials page on our website, which is northwestnavigation.com. And if you go there and you go to there's a menus page where you can go and you can, or menu, and at the bottom of the menu, there's a link to that page. And then the other thing I was going to talk about is that one of the things that we really like doing, and Christine really likes doing especially, is photographing bears. And we actually have a couple trips this year where they're set up specifically for photographers who are interested in learning more about the art of photography, but also learning how to do what's called post-processing, where you take your pictures and you sharpen things up, or you make it look like what you thought you saw when you actually pushed the trigger, and or the shutter. And so one of the things with that, it's just really really cool. The group goes out with a couple experienced photographers, and we go ashore with them, or they take pictures on the from the boat, and then they all get together in the saloon, and we have a slide projector, and we can look at everybody's pictures, and they can talk about how to adjust them and how to do things like that, so that they can balance the color and make it look like what they wanted to. And those trips also, we're running a discount on those too. One of them is in Glacier Bay, which is a spot we go to occasionally. It's a 8-day-long trip in Glacier Bay, and we also are doing another one of those that includes a trip to that Pack Creek bear viewing spot, and that one still has a couple spots left on it. But those also are on a 15% discount. And on all those, you get all Christine's good cooking, and also all the other things that come with one of our trips, lots of peaceful nights at anchor, and lots of amazing spots that you can see and go to.
Yeah, and another great trip that we have coming up that's on this special discount is we have Ecology of Southeast Alaska, and that's going to be with a friend of ours who is a killer whale biologist, and he's been on about 3 trips with us so far. And one of the things that he's going to talk about and show more in detail is the not only the transient killer whales, but also humpback killer whale or humpback whales, and how the residents and how all of that area is sort of intertwined, and how the geography and the wildlife sort of are in the area.
All connected.
All connected.
Yeah. So what Christine's going for here is that because there are these big glaciers there, and they produce all this runoff that is very silty, but it's very mineral rich. It brings the entire food chain. The mineral rich waters make it so that lots and lots of krill can survive in that area, and the krill are there as the food for the humpback whales. And then there also are lots of small bait fish, and there are lots of seals that are feeding in that area. And the seals are the food for the transient killer whales, transient orca whales. And we have seen quite a few of those. This trip with Josh in the past, we've actually been able to stay with a group that he was able to identify and watch them have a kill, which was kind of new to us and kind of neat. And also the resident orcas, the ones that eat salmon, are in that area because the streams are these very high producing salmon streams, and so because of that, the resident orcas are in the area as well.
Yeah, so we have a lot of really great trips coming up this summer, and we're very excited for what the season's shaping up to be like. And we're just hoping that we'll see you out there.
We'd really like to go on a trip and have you come along with us. We have a lot of fun. We actually do this because we like to do it, which is really, really neat. One of the things that I started with was that we often do things that are different from what the big ships do. We actually spend all of our time out in the wilderness. We anchor every night in a different spot. We very seldom end up anchoring where there are other boats around, and if there are, just a couple other boats. But we're usually by ourselves, and we work really hard to find spots like that. And we always joke that if you want to go to a t-shirt shop, we do sell t-shirts on board, but that's really the only thing that you would have to buy during the whole length of your trip, because we don't go to any towns, we don't do any of that kind of thing. That's really a big part of what the trips are about. And it really, we just had a question here. The big part of the way our pricing is set up is that we have one price for the trip, and that includes everything. All your meals are included in that. Every time you go ashore with Christine, you don't have to pay an extra charge for her to drive you over there in the skiff, and everything else is included with that, including the drinks and everything. And we like to make it simple, give you one price. You won't find add-ons. You won't get home and find that your credit card has been charged for a whole bunch of drinks or playing in the casino or anything, since we don't have any of that kind of stuff. It's also really cool that we operate with just 8 guests. That's our maximum. We actually can carry a few more people if somebody wants to, and we are able to carry up to 12, but normally on a trip, the number of people that would be there would be 8. And that means that we can go ashore in a spot like the place where we saw this black bear and be able to not disturb the bear while we're there. And it's just we're a small group, and we do things quietly and without disturbing the environment. And I think that on a lot of the boats that sell themselves as small ships, you'd find that the other 60 people that are with you on the beach kind of change what the thing is like.
So there's a question from Amy, and thank you for joining us, Amy. Amy's one of our regular passengers, and she wants to know what our most popular Alaska destination is. And I have my idea, and what's your idea?
I think that People really like the trip that we do that includes Tracy Arm and the glaciers at the end of Tracy Arm. It's one of the more popular spots to
Mhm.
visit in a small boat, and it's also just amazingly beautiful. It's not like anything else you'll find pretty much anywhere else on the planet. And that's really a big part of why I like doing what we do. It's just, it has these sheer granite cliffs that come down from probably 3,500 or 4,000 feet all the way along there, anywhere from tiny little waterfalls the size of a pencil up to huge roaring waterfalls 25 or 30 feet across, come down the sides of it. There's snowfields up at the top, and we motor up through there all the way to the end, and we're able to look at a couple glaciers that are at the end of it. How about you? What's your favorite?
I want to go back to Florida's Terror. I think that's my favorite. It's sort of a destination that people don't know that much about, but I think just the sheer beauty of it, with the again glacier carved granite fjord, and the color of the water is like the most gorgeous turquoise. It's the type of water that it looks cloudy, but you'll see kelp sometimes floating by, and you'll realize that it's absolutely clear. It's just it's an amazing color of yeah, turquoise blue. And while that might not be the most known place, it's definitely one of my favorite places. And for all of our passengers who've done an Alaska trip, I believe that that's one of the most special places that they've gone to, and one of the most popular.
We've added these Glacier Bay trips in the last couple of years, and the Glacier Bay is really an amazing spot. It's nice that it's a national park. It's they are very careful about the number of boats that are allowed in at any given time. There's a limit on the number of cruise ships and a limit on the number of small ships, and then even the private yachts that go there have to get a permit, and they limit the number of them. And all of that limiting makes it so that when you're there are very few other people around, and that that to me is really one of the cool things about that spot. It's very you feel very much like you're in the wilderness in that spot as well.
Yeah. And we had another question about northern lights and whether or not we see them. At the end of our season up in Alaska is when we see northern lights, if they're around. And it's usually sort of late July through early August is when we first start seeing northern lights.
We also have a question here from a former passenger who can't remember where it was that we took her, and we went to some hot springs on one of our trips. We actually do this on almost all of our trips. There's a spot where there's some natural hot springs, and there's actually a dock right there at the water's edge where we can go, and we take people there, and you hike up a trail to these natural hot springs pools. It's amazing, the hot springs, the water is very hot. It's nice to sit in there. You feel great. And right next to you is a huge roaring waterfall that goes beside the hot springs. And we'll actually post some pictures of that when we get done here.
Mhm.
That's one of the really cool spots that we go to as well.
Oh, and I wanted to thank Karen for joining us, and that we're also excited to have you on the boat this summer and look forward to going to Pat Creek with you.
And so the big thing that we wanted to tell people about, though, were these discounts that we're offering right now. That we do have 15% off of the trip that Christine talked about. That's the Whales and Ecology of Southeast Alaska, and that's with the guy who teaches that stuff at Banfield Marine Science Center, and he also is doing research on his own on transient orcas in the Puget Sound and southern British Columbia area. And then, so he's an experienced guide for that kind of
Mhm.
stuff, but he's also really good when we wander around the beach. And he knows what all the critters are
Mhm.
in the tide pools. And so that's the marine ecology, whales and marine ecology of Southeast Alaska. And then we also have um, the trips with the professional photographers, where they're going to be doing the teaching about how to do post-processing of your pictures. And also when we go ashore with those trips, they'll be doing actual tips for people shooting stuff with the pictures that they're taking there. And then we have a couple of the trips go to the Pack Creek Bear Observatory that are in that time period. And we'll be taking people ashore. That's where we have the experienced bear guide. We've done a lot of stuff with bears in the 12 years, 13 years that we've been doing this. And but this is kind of an interesting, different spot. And the bear guide will be joining us by float plane, and then we'll be going by skiff over to the Bear Observatory. Actually, there's another spot right next to it that we'll probably go either the night before or the morning after we do that.
Yeah.
And then we also have a couple trips that are just more of our normal kind of trips that go to Tracy Arm and also to Endicott Arm and Ford's Terror and the Hot Springs and Admiralty Island and all that. And all those trips right now, we're offering this 15% discount all the way through until
March 20th, the first day of spring.
All the way through to the end of winter.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, give us a call. The way to get in touch with us, on our website, there's a button that says Book Now, and you can that way you can send us an email. There's also an 800 phone number. It's 800 or 877
6707863.
Yeah. And but the best way is to go look at all the different things on our website and take a look at all the different possible trips. And like I said, in each one of the menus, if you're looking for the specials page, and each one of the menus at the very bottom, there's a link to the specials page. That's about all that we have.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to doing more of these, and especially during the summer when when we've between trips, and giving everybody a report on what we saw on each trip and what the highlights were. And yeah, I think that's what we have for today. And yes, I remember, Amy, your very special glacial ice drinks and for your birthday. And I hope for another birthday with you at some point, because I missed you. And Brandy, thank you for joining us. And we definitely miss you and Aaron as well.
So our website is northwestnavigation.com, and the specials page link is at the bottom in the menu there. So thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thank you.